because you already be healthy.
So do you think cooked food is toxic for the body then?
I think what we have to look at is what our culture has been doing, is producing statistics like, 1 out of, 8 people can expect to get cancer, heart disease is on the rise, diabetes is on the rise. I mean, we are the species that eats cooked food, and we are the ones that have the most diseases. So that's food for thought.
So, then have you heard of some diseases being healed and cured by following a raw diet?
I have. Certainly cancer, and just recently I was at a place in Santa Fe, and an acupuncturist was telling me about a friend of theirs who had AIDS and did raw food therapy and is now HIV negative.
Wow.
After having the progressed disease. So I'm hearing stories like this. Still, I consider myself new at it, and the other thing is, is everyone really going to stick with this? But of course, not too long ago I took a weekend workshop with the Butenkos, who wrote The Raw Family, and according to Victoria Butenko, her family had heart disease, obesity, asthma and diabetes and thyroid conditions, and they all got well.
Now I know your husband is Tom, right?
Yes.
Now, does he eat the same way you do?
He eats mostly raw, and then sometimes he eats things that aren't raw. But I'm so fine with that, because the real joy for me is he sits down at the table and says, "You're saving me." No. He had lots of digestive problems years ago, and even with all my knowledge and healthy cooking and whole grains and, trying to minimize wheat and, close to a vegetarian diet and all that healthy stuff, he still had digestive problems. And he finds that eating about 90% raw works for him. And, I think in relationship you have to be flexible and appreciate progress that people make, and not be a nag about anything. So I do have a daughter in LA who is raw, named Rainbow Mars. She's an actress and a model and a yoga teacher. And I also have a daughter named Sunflower. And my daughter Rainbow is actually the one who more recently turned me on to raw, because her roommate was Giuliano, and through her I met David Wolfe, and the same weekend I met Jeremy Saffron. It was all in one weekend in LA, and it seemed like the universe was saying, try this. And I originally wanted to try it to support my daughter, who's living in LA, and if she can do it, I kind of wanted to make sure it was a healthful thing for her to follow. And it didn't take too long before I was sold on it.
And was it difficult to make the transition for you?
It took a couple weeks to, figure out how to use the food processor and, get the Teflex sheets for the dehydrator and kind of organize my kitchen and, figure out a few things. But the amount of time that it saves and the amount of joy that it brings, I'm really excited about. Every day I wake up and I say, I wonder what kind of incredible things I'm going to make today. So it has brought a lot of happiness into my life.
I forgot what I was going to ask you. What is your? Do you have a typical daily diet, or is variety all the time?
There's a few things that are pretty standard. I like to start the day. My husband and I, we usually start the day with fruit in the morning, and sometimes we'll do lemon and water, or even lemon in warm water. But you can see right now, instead of using the stove, I'm growing sunflower and buckwheat grass on top of the stove and wheatgrass on the other 2 burners. So the stove doesn't get used that much. The toaster's gone down to the basement just in case a guest needs it, but we'd really rather they try our flax crackers or something. And then whenever possible, we love to have lunch as the main meal. Just because you need more fuel during the day. And I might make something like spaghetti, lasagna, Mexican food, a soup. I make really quick blended soups. And then we try to eat a salad once a day. Often the salads are at night. And since I'm trying to turn people on to this, I make cookies, I make poppy seed strudel, raw Thai food. I'll come home from teaching at noon, and at 20 past noon, I have raw Thai food on the table.
Wow.
That tastes incredible.
Wow.
Who wouldn't do that? I mean, you couldn't even get served that fast in a restaurant, and think about, you know, does it have MSG in it? Does it have, you know, animal fat in it? How much does it cost? How fresh is this? One of the things that really is a big part of my belief system is that there's a philosophy in herbal medicine called the doctrine of signatures. And the doctrine of signatures looks at that nature gives us hints as to what the plants are good for. And this sounds a little superstitious, but for example, you know, beet juice really does build the blood, and kidney beans, they really do tonify the kidneys, and blueberries are really good for the eyes, even brown eyes. And if you think about how wonderful eating something that's fresh and uncooked, you know, how the vitality of the plants are conserved. I recently saw some Kirlian photographs that showed the light emanating from plants, and my guess is they wouldn't emanate that much if the food had been cooked. So it's the life force that's really emanating. I love the way I feel from this.
And has your social life changed then with all this activity and all these new foods? It sounds like you're inviting friends over to experience this, and it's probably increased your social life.
I want to turn everybody onto this. So I'll, you know, have raw potlucks, and I tell my friends, like if I go to dinner at someone's house, I'll bring something raw. It's kind of nice because rather than being the only raw one, it helps to have your other friends be into this. So now when I go to a dinner party, you know, maybe there'll definitely be lots of raw things, raw mango pie or, you know, some raw Mexican dish. So we're all teaching each other, and it really helps to have support to do this. And I'm finding that I'm attracted to friends who also know what I'm talking about and understand the joys of this. And yeah, it's the kind of thing you do want to tell everybody, and you need to sometimes restrain yourself so that you don't, like, you know, bother people. But you know, when your friends tell you, I have headaches, I have cramps, I'm so low energy, you know, why not show them something that they'll probably love that's really easy? And so it's good to introduce this to people. You love your friends, you care about them, invite them over for dinner, have potlucks.
Do you feel like, because you've cut out so many foods, not eating cooked foods anymore, do you feel like that you're missing out on any essential nutrients, calories, proteins, vitamins, minerals?
The good news is, for the first time in my life, I eat as much as I want, and I've lost all that little middle-age flab that would have made me feel uncomfortable wearing a bikini and being photographed. Now, I would do it proudly. What middle-aged woman wouldn't want that?
You know, you hear, I saw a David Wolf interview recently with a bunch of other guys, and he was talking about how much of a problem it is in wintertime, especially in lots of places, like especially in Colorado, to get enough minerals. And they talk about how lots of the foods that we eat will be shipped in from California, so there's all this time delay from the ground to our table finally, and there's devitalized food even in the raw foods. Mm-hmm. Do you think it is a problem to get enough nutrients and minerals, especially in the wintertime?
Well, this is an area where herbal knowledge can come into play, because the herbs, which dry very easily, can give you minerals, and by including things like, you know, nettle tea or nettle cold water infusion. Nettles is really high in iron. Red clover blossoms are really high in calcium. Oat straw is high in calcium and silica. And the other place I get minerals from are sea vegetables. And sea vegetables, they grow in the mineral-rich brine of the ocean, and they're easy to buy dried. I buy Ryan Drum's famous seaweed that is hand-harvested from very clean waters in the Pacific Northwest. And I don't think that that's a problem, but I do think a person who takes on raw foods should look at that, and, you know, eating greens every day. So you don't want to be lazy about it. You want to put effort into it. And I also do read a lot, but I don't feel like I'm missing anything at all. As a matter of fact, everything that I would have wanted to improve in my health seems to be better. And a couple ways I look at mineral content is the health of one's fingernails and the health of one's hair. Do they have split ends? And I'm finding that, you know, those little barometers of health are better than ever.